Hello again, everybody. This is Martin Spriggs on the WELSTech podcast, episode 384 for March 17th, 2015. It's a little show we do each and every week about technology and ministry. We kind of try and figure out what's useful, what's not, and love to hear what you think about those things as well. And joining me in the conversation each and every week, Sally Draper. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Martin, and happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm not wearing green, and neither are you. Oh, well.
You're in a green room, though.
I am, but more importantly, I should take this important time on WELSTech and do a shout-out to my sister, who is a St. Patrick's Day birthday girl. So
Is that right?
Important.
Okay.
We always had green
no
cake.
Irish, though, in your family.
Not a bit. No, but we celebrated with green cake every year, nonetheless.
No Irish in my family either, but green is my favorite color. I don't know if that counts.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know. You might still get pinched if somebody was being real particular today.
That's true. I changed the banner on my Office 365 account to green. That should count for something.
Ah, the digital green.
Yeah. So what are you doing at home today?
What am I doing at home? I'm trying to get better connection, and I don't know if I improved my situation or not. This had some weird things with my computer. I got off the network at MLC, and when I tried to get back on my Ethernet connection, it didn't recognize me.
Those darn computers.
I lost my job.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wi-Fi can be a mystery sometimes.
Yeah. Tried diagnosing, tried disabling and re-enabling, all those things you're supposed to do, and rebooted, and no luck.
Audio video looks crystal clear right now, so that's good.
Thanks to my Unify.
Yeah, your Unify system.
That's right.
All right. Glad everybody's able to join us. We have a special show today. We're kind of doing a series-ish kind of thing through the next few months as we approach the WELSTech conference. That's trying to get one of the speakers or session leaders on the show and talk, give a little bit of a preview about what they're going to talk about and give you, our faithful listeners, an idea of maybe this is the conference for you, or help you in the selection process as you hit that sign-up form before April 1st to get the early bird special. And kind of a special interview this week because we got Steve Betcher to come on the show and talk a little bit about his keynote address. He is one of our two keynote speakers. And Steve is well known in WELS circles. That's obviously why he's one of the keynotes. Betcher Trinkline is the company that produces WELS Connection. So if you've ever seen a WELS Connection, you've seen his work. And it doesn't stop there. He does a lot of other stuff for PBS, and he's a great guy and has been working with the Synod for, as you'll hear in the interview, about 28 years. He doesn't even look old enough to have spent that long working with the good people in WELS. So, Sally, what do you say we just play the interview, and then we can chat a little bit about what Steve brought to the table in the interview?
I'd love to hear from Steve. Sounds good.
All right, now I got to find out how to do that. Let's see if I hit the play button here.
Steve, thanks for being here. I really appreciate
much.
it. Normally you're on the other side of the camera. Now you're in front. How does that feel?
It's so much easier on that side. It's an easier job. It's like 6 feet, and all of a sudden all changes. You know.
Really, thanks. Thanks a
No
lot.
Thank
for
you
being
very
here.
much.
Appreciate the time. I want to talk a little bit about media. We're going to be doing a little keynote together this summer at the WELSTech
Look forward to
conference, and thought you would be a perfect person to kind of talk about what that means for the church and a lot of those things. Before we get started, maybe a little bit of background about you and your connection to media. When did that all get started? Was there some life event that kind of brought you into the world of media production?
You know, I had a father who came out of the entertainment business, so I think that's part of it. I think I just saw it and kind of lived it through him, but this is all I've ever done, and it's like, this is all I know. I'm unemployable after this. I really am, so this is really all I know.
Well, it's good that you're good at it then, huh?
I got nothing. I have no backup plan right now.
So, what was it that kind of drew you into some of the things that you're doing for the Synod? Now, you've done WELS Connection for 20-some odd years since its history, right? I mean, you did the first one, right?
Yeah, and I just started working at television stations, and Milwaukee was my third stop in the television food chain, and like a media migrant worker. And I was 23 years old and just was kicking around town and went across town to the Synod building, and had a chance to meet people there and the communication director, and met with the president, and just we began a conversation about how can we connect the work of ministry better with congregations and our synod.
Yep. Those were early days.
Yeah, very much so.
Didn't have the internet back then, so it was really just video production,
Yeah,
right?
it
Put
was.
it on a VHS tape, send it out to congregations, and I think other synods are kind of envious, other church bodies are kind of envious on the reach that we have in that kind of communications tool, the WELS Connection.
Yeah, it's so funny. Every 5 years you get a phone call from one of the synods that call and say, now how do you do this? I can always tell when administrations change,
right.
where someone new is in that chair at some other synod, and they always ask about it. So, I mean, we've been really, really fortunate, really blessed to be able to do it. And in the early days, technology was so expensive, and cameras and editing, that I had the ability to kind of do a lot of the work with the blessing of my television station. So I would get the cameras and be able to edit at the TV station, and that really kind of subsidized the ability to do this for the first 10 years. Equipment now is a lot cheaper, and it's all about expertise now. So, but that was really kind of what launched WELS Connection.
Yeah. Now you do not just ministry-related broadcasts. You've done some PBS stuff and a lot of other kinds of things. Any difference in how you approach it?
No, great question. I think it all comes down to story. I mean, story is really kind of like what I guess the media is about, if you think about it, no matter what the format is. And I think with the Bible and with our synod and our church bodies, it's all about ministry, and that's the greatest story to tell. So there's a lot of parallels.
Yep. A lot of joy and some eternal benefits, obviously, to the ministry-related ones. But
yeah, absolutely. I think with WELS Connection, too, what's been really fun, I think, is I feel like I have a rare glimpse to be able to go from congregations to missions to rural missions to schools, and just kind of see ministry in a very raw area, a very raw way, and you just see about all the great people that God has blessed in ministry that are out there doing it in their own communities, in their own neighborhoods, and whether it's missions or work or whatever. And it's really kind of, you go like, sometimes it's easy to get down on churches and ministries and stuff like that, but when I see this, it's like, wow, that the health of our synod and our congregations is really great.
Right. I know better than anybody that kind of a regular show can be a cruel taskmaster.
Yeah, yeah.
WELS Connection is a big production every month.
Yeah.
You ever afraid of running out of topics?
Great question. I think early on, we're kind of like trying to figure out what we were doing, and I remember in one of the early meetings we just started launching WELS Connection. I think 200 congregations subscribed to it early on, so it was really flailing and just starting out and just kind of building a base. And someone in one of the meetings said to us, what happens when we start running out of stories to tell? Oh, and that's the time you start like really worried about everything. That's like that's when you close doors of ministry. But I think right now we could easily do this every single week. There's that many great stories to tell in our church.
That's really good news. So let's talk a little bit about media in general. What is media? How do you define media today? It's changed probably exponentially in the last 20 years since you started.
I feel like we're kind of drowning in this sea of media too. It's kind of a huge ocean, and we're just screens everywhere. And I think that's really become kind of a challenge this day. But I think media is everything, and it's just whether it's podcasts or television shows or the web. I think it's wrangling this huge beast that's media.
Right. So how has media changed or influenced the church? Is it a different ballgame for churches today because of the access to media creation tools and some of the the ease at which you can produce it? Kind of our YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I saw, I think has been interesting over the last 28 years of doing WELS Connection. There was always a struggle with getting televisions or screens in the front of churches, and now you see they're building brand new churches with huge screens,
building it almost around that concept.
Exactly. Right? And what a great way to. And I think early on I would hear conversations about we want to make sure we do this right, and we don't want this to interfere with the service. But I think we're embracing our hymns up there for people that have vision problems or whatever. And I think it goes to other media, social media also, that we can embrace these tools, and they can be a great blessing for outreach and for ministry.
A lot of people feel differently about it, but I really enjoy the screens up there. I can almost call it kind of a heads-up display where I can keep my chin up rather than buried in the hymnal. I think it's been a very positive thing for those churches that have done that for the most part.
Even for my church, we'll sing a hymn, and there'll be like a scene behind the hymn of the crucifixion or whatever, and it seems to really just it adds for me, I guess, the visual component.
Sure, kind of a stained glass effect.
Exactly,
almost,
exactly. And I think it's powerful when you're singing a hymn and seeing that. Yeah.
Right. So churches, other organizations, religious organizations, are all trying to figure this thing out. Media. Some are trying to determine whether we can do this in-house with stuff that we've got, people that we've got. Others are trying to determine how do we outsource this, what the budget should be. What kind of advice would you give a congregation just kind of thinking about using media, maybe stepping up their game a little bit there?
I think every congregation has that, that 20-something or those teenagers now that are just really, really gifted in this area. And I have a daughter now that's has moved to Los Angeles, and she's helping social media in the Wells Church in Los Angeles. So I think it's tapping these young people that understand it so incredibly well. And the tools are cheap now. It's just that skill set is really what we're looking for now, I think.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the keynote that you're going to deliver. It's kind of a modified keynote. We're going to kind of do something like this,
Absolutely.
I think.
I have pages of notes just on the keynote right now. So literally.
We only have an hour.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been working 6 months on this, just so it's going to be really good.
Okay. We'll have to trim that down. We need an editor.
Okay, right. Yeah.
But the title of it is Media, Friend or Foe. Which is it?
I think it's a battlefield for both, I think. I think for our families, it's really, really a challenging field that has to be monitored very closely with young people and young families. And the stats are now in, I think, that have pretty solid foundation the last 10 or 15 years of media. What is the impact? And I think it's scary sometimes from a family point of view. I think on the flip side, the other side of the sword, I think, is in ministry. Wow, what a great tool that we can reach out to our neighborhood and communities every single day and meet people and in a very non-threatening way. So it's powerful.
Almost an expectation probably for a church to have some kind of a media ministry. I think for visitors or people coming in, we live in that kind of generation, so there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, there is, and I think I can hear pastors already. I can hear it out there already. They're like, oh man, I got to do more, and I think it's just maybe tweaking the tools we have so far. It's not always reinventing, doing their own podcast or their own video or whatever. It's a challenge, but I think it's subtle tweaks that we can make today that will impact tomorrow. Okay.
I think in many regards, media can equal ministry, and I think it's not just this thing off to the side that kind of bugs you once in a while. Maybe we should do this or do a promo video. It's really that, along with social networks, is kind of blended in with what you do for ministry.
Absolutely. I remember 28 years ago when we started doing Wells Connection, and we'd be on location at a home mission, and they would go out and handle pamphlets door to door in rainstorms and snowstorms, and now literally all these people are a click away in our neighborhoods and our communities. So what a great tool to be able to kind of to reach out to that neighborhood.
You were involved with Road to Emmaus and Come Follow Me. There's a sequel to those kind of that you're working on. Tell us a little bit about that. What's it called and what's it about?
It's just like these are movie projects that the Wells has been really on the forefront, I think, of creating, and we've been honored to serve in a humble way, honestly. And they are 30-minute films that are used kind of for outreach, and also they're used by home and rural missionaries. And we did Road to Emmaus, Come Follow Me, and the third one in the sequence or in the series is My Son, My Savior, and it's the story of Mary and the mother of Jesus, and it's her story, and what is Mary's role, and kind of going back to the Bible and reviewing what her role is and where Jesus is in that role.
What's kind of the objective of the story? Is it more evangelistic? Is there a theme or a kind of an end game for what the viewer should get out of it once they're done watching the 30 minutes?
Great question. A lot of this story really came out of rural and home missions, and especially to the south of us, and also in the southern, kind of the Smile Belt of the U.S., where there's a lot of outreach going on and a lot of communities that maybe are confused with what Mary's role is in the Bible and in teaching, and so I think we'll hopefully help to add a visual component to that.
Where are you in the process? Have you done all the casting and started to film yet?
We're right in the middle of kind of casting and building sets. I think we've so far auditioned maybe 200 or 300 Marys, and it's like that role is really significant. It's a key to the film, and finding someone that you understand, you have compassion for, you understand what she was going through and the struggles that she had, and it's a long process.
What do you look for in when you do that casting? Same Jesus?
Yeah, same Jesus. Yeah, that was in Road to
awesome.
Emmaus and Come Follow Me.
Right.
You know, I think the number one goal is to find something that allows you to suspend your belief and maybe, yeah, that is her. For a second or two, you can believe it.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, I think we want you to fall in love with Mary, if you will, you know, in a way that, you know, she's the mother of Christ, and just in a way that you can believe that, you know, what's her story about and the components of her story.
How are what you're doing with these series different than maybe what we'd see at on the big silver screen, where we've got, you know, things like Noah and Exodus and those kinds of things?
Have you seen any of those movies?
I've seen Noah.
Okay. I've seen it also. Don't go. Seriously, stay away. Run. But I think, you know, our first impression is probably to rip on those. Mm-hmm. Even people haven't seen it always have an opinion on it, it seems. I've seen it, you've seen it, and I think, you know, these are conversation starters. You know, when you see the box office of 40, 50, 60 million dollars of, you know, that they've raised in 1 month, that tells, or that one opening weekend, that tells me there's an audience for this. And there are people that want to know. And this is a chance to, you know, on a Friday night, meet people at a coffee shop and open your Bible and let's read. What really happened with Noah?
Right.
And I think, you know, if I was a pastor, I'd be doing the sermon on Sunday when Noah opens up. And I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to take that seed of an idea and grow it.
And with these, you're telling the true story,
absolutely,
but also creating the conversation.
Absolutely, and it's in everyone's mind. It's in the newspaper. You drive downtown, you see the billboards for it. You know, it's those kind of things. Yeah.
Wonderful. Blessings on that work.
Oh, thank you.
Any chance we're going to see any clips of that this summer at the Keynote?
Yes, that's a great tease. We got to tease people to come to the July 9th weekend.
Right.
And yeah, we'll definitely bring some stuff to show.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Steve. Blessings on your continued work.
Thank you very much.
It's tough to get Stephen actually in front of the camera, and thanks to Lee Hitter as well, who was doing the switching there. You got a little bit of a glimpse of the new studio in the CMM. We haven't made use of it a lot, but we're going to be, when I get a little time, transitioning the podcast over to that studio as well. So, but Steve's always a great interview.
Yeah, I'm super excited for his keynote. I think it's going to set the conference off on a great start. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and it'll be a little bit different than the average keynote. It won't just be, you know, kind of the sage on the stage just talking for an hour. It will be kind of this interview format, but just not me formulating questions, but we're going to try and do some audience participation through the mobile app for the conference, where we're going to solicit questions, comments, and really let the people at the conference direct the conversation. It'll all be about media. We're entitling it media friend or foe, so there are, you know, the good and the bad, but I think this is really a topic, Sally, that is, I think, weighing heavily on a lot of congregations, how to use media effectively, and that it's getting so much easier to implement those kinds of things into media, into you know, ministry, and it's almost expected, I think, by some, that you have some kind of media ministry.
And, you know, we are moving down the road in that way, that there's more experience out there. We've seen good things, we've seen bad things. We have people like Steve that can advise us on the positive ways to implement media. So I think that's what's going to resonate with a lot of people at the conference, is not just should we be doing this, but how do we do it well? How do we do it effectively? How does God's Word get conveyed in the proper light?
Yeah, and I think the benefit that we'll get from Steve in the conference and the keynote is it won't just be about technology, which is actually pretty easy at this point. Getting video, if we can do it, anybody can, Sally. But it's really the content and the story, and what are you filming? What are you talking about? What is this media that you're creating, and what value is there in it? And that is really the hard part.
Yeah. So Steve mentioned information about Come Follow Me and Road to Emmaus and this new yet untitled Mary movie. Maybe we could focus a little bit on that before we leave this thought process, Martin. And it kind of made me realize all the great resources that are available around those films, and also many different ways that you can make use of those.
Right. So these have been out for a while now, and they're available in different forms. If you go to roadtoemmausmovie.com or comefollowingmovie.com, you can see some of the resources there, and actually clips or even the full feature-length film. Both of them are about a half an hour. But there are lots of ways just to use this prepackaged media, both inside and outside your church, both for discipleship kinds of purposes, but also for evangelistic type of purposes. I know Steve mentioned it, or maybe a little secret behind this interview. We actually had to do the interview twice because technology failed us and the audio didn't record, so we got to do this twice. I don't remember which conversation, the first one or the second one we had, where we talked about the giveaway, where there was a donor that came through and for the Road to Emmaus movie made it possible for congregations to essentially give this DVD away. And now with things like YouTube and those kinds of things, it's real easy to get this media out there. But that's a no-brainer for that kind of content, almost as a standalone. And there are all kinds of other resources. But I'm thinking from corporately, it's easy to use these, but also personally, for personal evangelism, these tell a great story. So if you're maybe shy or you have members who aren't quite sure about how to have these discussion starters, both of these movies that have come out are excellent ways to kind of open up a conversation, as Steve was talking about in the interview, just a way to say, hey, take a look at this, it's well done, it poses interesting questions, and maybe starts the conversation that can lead into work that the Holy Spirit can do through your conversation with that person.
Our congregation here in New Ulm, St. Paul's, had enough copies to give away so that we could take multiple copies to give to others. But we also staffed a booth at the local home show, and this was our giveaway item there. So, getting out in the community and having this available to hand to people is certainly a great way to share the good news.
Yeah, I've heard of people kind of in these parades, these little small town parades, buying enough to give those away. And then all of the many opportunities to use these, and I know a lot of congregations have done that, use them inside the church, where they're having it as a Bible study, Sunday morning Bible study, or a special Bible study where they're inviting the community. I've heard of families using this as family Bible studies, and some congregations creating materials around that beyond the ones that are there. Opportunities, we talked, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, talked about blogging. Our blog posts, here's an opportunity to reference a clip, and have a conversation about it in a blog post. So the opportunities for using this excellently done presentations, in essence, law gospel presentations to a certain degree, are almost endless.
Yeah, I can think of classroom settings, particularly like confirmation class, or just in a traditional classroom setting, maybe an upper grade class where you want to view clips from the movie over a period of time leading up to your Easter break or whatever. Perfect timing to consider that right now.
Or even Bible information class. Some of these would make good way to break things up, give a little bit of the pastor a break as he's kind of just playing a couple video clips and engaging in a conversation versus just kind of the more structured, slog through the material kind of stuff. So.
Sounds like this is probably worthy of a ministry resource, Martin.
I think that's a great transition, and lo and behold, there are resources, aren't there?
There definitely are. Let me see if I can share my screen, and I'll show you a couple of them. We have them currently housed out on our Connect website, which is publicly accessible and easy to download from. I'm just trying to find the right button on my computer. Almost there. All right, so hopefully you're seeing my Road to Emmaus screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first movie in the series, and here you can find things like Bible study and leader materials and that kind of thing. The Come Follow Me is even more extensive, where they've set up a series of 7 Bible studies around the different vignettes around Holy Week and following Holy Week all the way up to Pentecost, and they have all the material available in both English and Spanish versions. and available in both Word documents and PDFs. So if you were looking to do some editing or whatever, you could download the Word versions and modify it for use in your Bible class setting or whatever you want to do. But these very lessons that are available here could be those family Bible studies or classroom Bible study resources or whatever you need. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, and of course these are timeless materials, and they've crafted them that way so that even if you recognize that the Road to Emmaus has been out for many years now, basically 3-4 years, you still have an opportunity to use the resource effectively. So lots of good stuff there. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes as our ministry resource. And really consider those are just for your own personal edification. Watch those again. Those are cool. And I'm really, as you mentioned, looking forward to the Mary movie coming out later this year. So another reason to attend the WELSTech conference, you'll get maybe a premiere viewing of some of the clips from some of the work they've done between now and then. So it won't be done by then, but Steve has promised me that he'll put together something to show our WELSTech conference attendees.
Looking forward to it.
Shall we move along to our news and tech section? I think you found some interesting stuff from the Washington Post.
I did. Apparently hitting the newsstands just today is information about a new 3D printing technique. And they say it's inspired by the movie Terminator 2. And the reason that is that, well, interestingly, a quote from the article, what we think that popular 3D printing is actually misnamed. It's really just 2D printing over and over again. So layering 2D printing to form 3D versions. But this actually comes from some kind of a liquid and builds up this 3D thing with this new printing technique, and it's fast and more effective, I guess. So just a brand new way to think of 3D printing available now.
Inspired by Terminator 2, it says.
Yep. Just what I want to be inspired by, I guess.
It is a brave new world. I think we're, maybe in our lifetime, Sally, we'll see some just amazing. I mean, we're already seeing some amazing things, but basically, you're pretty much limited by early on technology. But this whole 3D printing concept is just an amazing thing that probably has endless possibilities as well. So, interesting. Yeah. Sally, shall we move along to our picks of the week?
Yes, I think we should, and that's actually the perfect lead-in to my pick of the week. It's more of a question of the week this week, and it's, do you know what the Internet of Things refers to? And this is something that's come up recently in a class that I'm taking, and I found it intriguing and perhaps just a little bit scary, but the fact that many of our devices are going to be keyed in and working automatically on our behalf in the future. I think a good example would be
when your iPhone sees you get out of bed, it starts the coffee maker and puts the toast in the toaster, right?
Mm-hmm. We've talked before about contact lenses that measure your blood sugar and those kind of things. They have all different examples on this page that I'll link to, but even better, they have an infographic which I pinned on the WELSTech board, Martin. It was screaming for me to pin it. It's called What Exactly is the Internet of Things? And they have some really great examples here in this infographic. I think it's just something we need to be aware of and know that it's coming. You get down here towards the bottom of the infographic and they give examples, like I said. It says Sophia and her son Louis are on their way downtown for an appointment. Wireless sensors embedded in the parking lot help direct her car to an open slot. And then when using the car's parking details, the vehicle schedules a mobile mechanic to change the oil while the two are away for the afternoon. So just one example of the Internet of Things working together on our behalf. It's interesting and intriguing, but perhaps kind of scary and maybe invasive. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't think we're too far away from those kinds of scenarios with self-driving cars and those kinds of things. It's we'll probably see it in the bigger cities, the more urban areas, and we'll see it before it hits New Ulm or even Slinger. But it is the opportunities for connected devices. Devices are very easy to connect these days, and you have almost ubiquitous internet with the cellular service that we have, and the opportunities to create these devices. I think manufacturers are taking advantage of this. You go into your Best Buy store now, and they have whole areas now devoted to smart home kind of things, where you can unlock your door with your smartphone, or open your garage door, your lights, or just an endless array of things that are consumer ready at this point and within the reach of a lot of budgets at this point. I don't have a lot of those things at this point, but I think as prices come down, that's a kind of an appealing thing.
Yeah. One more note from my class. My instructor shared a video about Microsoft Hololens, which is kind of a goggle that you can wear that's, I guess, not yet out on the market, but being developed by Microsoft. And it allows you to see and interact with the internet via these goggles. And there's this video, I just have to include it in our show notes. It's really something, the way they demo it here, it's like holograms, like what we're used to seeing on Star Trek. Didn't we have a Star Trek conversation not that long ago, Martin?
Right. Yep.
So
the difference between this and like Google Glass or some of the VR headsets, in fact, that was one of your picks, I think, a while back with Google Cardboard. That's virtual reality where you're seeing a screen. This is, I think, what they would call augmented reality, where you're seeing your real universe, but you're mapping things on top of it that you can interact with. Or that's very interesting.
I showed this video to my boys. Microsoft bought Mojang, which is the creator of Minecraft, a while back. So Microsoft owns Minecraft, and one of the things in this video is a whole room full of Minecraft. So you chip away at your table, and you're in a Minecraft world underneath or something, and it's that augmented reality where, so there's the motivation behind Microsoft buying Minecraft, apparently. So.
That's it. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Pretty amazing stuff.
All right, the Internet of Things even has its own acronym, IoT.
Watch for it. You'll see more about it, I'm sure, in the future.
So you're hearing that? You're hearing talk about that in the class you're taking, huh?
I am, which is ed tech focused, and they're saying that that's something education needs to be paying attention to as well. These innovations and how they're going to affect education. Kids in our classrooms now have never known life without the internet. They are those digital natives. I wonder what we'll call our grandkids who will have this augmented reality as part of everything they've ever experienced.
Yeah. I tell you, a conversation I had with my brother's his birthday last weekend, so I called him, and he's a year younger than me, but he's done a lot with computer firmware, worked for a company that made monitoring devices for nuclear reactors and all kinds of stuff that's way over my head. But he recently bought a 105-gallon fish tank, saltwater fish tank, and they want to do some traveling and they want to be away for a month or two at a time. So he put his engineering mind to work to figure out how he can, both feed the fish, add water, change the water. There's a reverse osmosis system. So he's got this all, just an amazing kind of Internet of Things, where from his iPhone he can see how, what the salt level is in the water, when to add more water, when to, and the tank can clean itself. So he can actually be gone for 2 months and still have, a clean tank, and the fish are fed and alive, and the water gets changed, and just an amazing thing where he's putting all these things together with, things like Raspberry Pis and Arduinos, and lots of different, a little bit of programming, just an amazing thing. That's probably where you're going to see a lot of the engineering smarts going on as we get some of these STEM graduates coming out. It won't just be, well, I can program. It's like you gotta make things work together. So that's that's a field that is growing by leaps and bounds. So.
Who would think your fish tank would generate all that technology? Pretty amazing.
Yeah, a little bit of money too, he told me too.
Yeah.
But that's kind of his hobby. He's retired, so he did well for himself, and he retired younger than he's a year younger than I, and having fun now. So
cool.
My pick, I'm kind of excited about my pick, kind of an automation thing too. We've been kind of trying to figure out here in the Synod office how to get the best or the most optimal AV setup. So we're putting these cheap laptops in our AV rooms or in our conference rooms, and this was my pick last week. These HP Stream 13 notebooks, about $250 kind of Windows-based Chromebook, but one of the things that we wanted to figure out how to do was when somebody uses them or maybe download something on them, how to reset it or reboot it back to a clean state, so there would be a kind of a low maintenance. And this is a problem that anybody who manages a computer lab or computers in a classroom setting, how do you keep these things up to date, and how do you keep them fresh and clean and get back to a known good state? So I found a little program. Actually, one of my staff members here found the program for me called Reboot Restore RX. And let me just share their website here. But it is a free product, Reboot Restore RX. It's freeware. They also have a paid-for version. But basically, it will restore your system to the state it was in when it was rebooted the last time. To a known state, and it's really quick. You hardly notice that it's working in the background at all. It does a nice job of just kind of getting it back to a known state, a state where things work. So all the programs that you had on there, let's say it's Word and Excel and Skype and all those things come back just as they were. A little program that runs in the background, and I really couldn't believe that what it does for free was just kind of a win for us. So we put this on our computers. There is a paid-for version called Drive Vaccine, and I'm sure some of our listeners are familiar with some of this software, having to maintain a computer lab and trying to get everything back. But you've got all kinds of options on this, but just kind of a nice setup for free if you want to go the cost route or the paid-for route with Drive Vaccine. It gives you some other features, but it's not all that much. Let me see if I can find the pricing here. I know there was a pricing function here. Let's see. For Drive Vaccine, there's educational pricing, which actually goes for nonprofits as well. Basically, for 5 to 24 PCs, $22 per license, and that's not per month or per year. That's just a one-time cost. So that's actually a pretty good cost to get this peace of mind, and actually lowers your maintenance costs. If you've got public computers that are available in your environment, or classroom PCs, or internet kiosks, those kinds of things, this can be a lifesaver just to kind of get things or keep things in good working order, so that you don't have to constantly reinstall or reimage these computers. So that is from a company called Horizon DataSys. Making IT simple is their tagline, but good product. I've been working to try and break this, so try and install things, download files, introduce viruses, those kinds of things. And this really takes care of all that, and would be something to consider if you're maintaining more than just a couple laptops. So good stuff.
Very good. That reminds me, Martin, that James Monkey is coming to present at WELSTech conference on PC updates and doing them easily. So perhaps he'll be presenting similar or other alternatives to what you just presented.
There are a bunch of them, yep, but this is the one that we kind of settled on because it's the right price and seems to work really well. Works on Windows 7 or Windows 8. I don't think there is a Mac version that they have per se, but there are others out there as well. So good stuff.
Thank you.
Let's go to Wells Insider.
Yep, and I believe you have the inside scoop on the fact that Wells blogs have been rebooted.
Yeah, they have been rebooted. Nice segue. I like that. We are in the process of moving all of Wells.net to a new platform. We're moving from Drupal to WordPress, and this is kind of the first step in that, and just migrating the Wells blogs. And there are 3 kind of active ones. Actually 4 if you count WELSTech, which is technically a blog. But Missions, Technology, and Christian Aid and Relief all have regular blogs and blog posters. A couple of advantages. It's a fresh new design, of course, but it's also mobile friendly. The old blogs were not. Now you can pull these up. If you go through the mobile app, it goes to this new version now. Media rich, and just a lot of things that make it a little bit easier to use, a little faster to load, a little more visually appealing. So just wanted to make everybody aware that our blogs are now have been converted to WordPress and are waiting for you to log in and take a look at them.
Very nice, clean design. I'll have to give my compliments to the webmaster.
Yeah, and that was Julie Duran's involved certainly, but Brianna Lambrecht, now recently married, is involved with the redesign of the website, just doing a fantastic job. So
that's great. We also want to be sure to share some insider information about WELSTech Conference coming up July 9th through 11th. We've made mention of it all throughout the show. I think the thing that you need to know today is that as of St. Patrick's Day, we figured out what's at the end of the rainbow is actually WELSTech Conference. It's the pot of gold just waiting for you to come and claim. So if you head over to wells.net/WELSTechConf, you can get registered. Early registration goes through April 1st, so that's coming up pretty quickly, Martin. And after that, the price goes up a bit. Right now, the price is $199, and that's for 2 solid days over 50 speakers, 100 different breakout options. Just a really great bang for the buck there. You can learn a whole lot this summer at WELSTech Conference.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, if you sign up before April 1st, you have to share a little bit less of your pot of gold. After that, a little more of your pot of gold to attend the session. So we'd love to have you there. Looking forward to just a tremendous lineup of speakers, including Steve Betcher, of course. So let's move along to community feedback. Number of people talking to us this week. Jason Winjet first from Digo.
Yeah, Jason added some things to Digo, which fit very nicely on our Pinterest board as well. And I had to smile because he even added a comment that said he tried to put it on Pinterest, didn't exactly get it there, but encouraged me to. So I took advantage, followed his lead, and now we have these lovely infographics. Most, I think, came from Church Mag, a lot of this, but one is titled Email Marketing versus Social Media. And, kind of gives the pros and cons. I think there's pros and cons both directions, and they give a good rundown on communication and those different channels and the different purposes they serve. Another infographic, the top 5 web trends of 2015, perhaps good for someone redesigning a website. One is mobile focus. I think that has to be number 1 on everybody's radar these days as more and more people spend, what does it say? Americans spend an average of 2.5 hours per day on their mobile devices. So if you're not coding your site for mobile, then you're losing a lot of people, I would think, who might be looking that direction. Interactive scrolling. So things scroll a little bit differently or scroll infinitely. I've had this problem on YouTube where I'm trying to get to the footer of the YouTube page, and every time I scroll down, it just loads more videos for me to look at and consider, and that's that infinite scrolling. I think it happens on Facebook as well. As you scroll down the page, more things load. So that's a design trend. This is called flat design, a very clean
Google approach. Yeah.
So And then single page. I've seen this more and more recently where all the content is on one page and you just kind of jump down the page or whatever, and it works great on mobile. You can kind of move the content around easily on mobile to make it look good. And then finally, I really like number 5, a clean, simple layout. And I think we saw that over on the blog site. I was just thinking as I was looking at it that I like the white space. I like the simplicity. And, you know, that's a design thing. That's a challenge. That's probably a really difficult thing to accomplish, Martin, that clean and simple. You have to put a lot of thought into your content to boil it down and present it in a way that delivers your message in a very concise and easy to read and easy to digest mode.
Yep, the temptation is there to throw everything in the kitchen sink on your website because you're afraid you're not going to have enough there. But really, it should be the reverse. So avoid that temptation and take a look at this infographic. Good stuff there. Thank you, Jason.
And one more, actually, that Jason tagged. I just linked to the Church Mag article, Why Digital Discipleship is More Biblical Than You Think. So interesting concept of going out digitally to share the good news and how many people are in that space and how you can reach out to them. So
interesting. Good.
Yep. And then there was a really hot topic on the WELSTech listserv around a question from Gail Potratz where she asked about library software and got an overwhelming response. So if you're looking for library software, maybe for your church library or your school library, I would say probably the most popular one response was Library Thing at librarything.com. And many people expressed that they've used it and had good results with it. But that was not the only response we received to this question. And so you definitely need to surf on over to the listserv link that I include on the show notes if you're looking for that kind of thing, because there's a whole host of open source, free, pay-for library softwares out there, and a lot of good experience that was shared in all those responses to Gail's questions as well.
WELSTech listserv proves its worth once again.
Yeah, best community.
It was like within a 24-hour period that Gail asked the question and then received all those responses. So,
yep. Even some list of things like, you know, where websites dedicated to evaluating library software and their responses to what's good and bad. So,
you bet.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that it for community feedback?
That's going to do it for me today. Yes, sir.
All right. Please consider giving us your community feedback about anything that we've talked about or questions that you have or comments, suggestions, show ideas. All those things qualify as community feedback. And if you want to be anonymous, we'll let you be anonymous. That's fine. Just let us know that. But please do comment. Go to our show notes page, wellstech.wels.net. Leave a comment there on one of the posts. You just have to click on the little bubble icon in the upper right of a post to or of a show to get at that, and then you can leave your comment there. WELSTech@wels.net's the email address that Sally and I monitor, and then all the social networks. Pinterest, head of the pack there, of course, Digo, Twitter, Facebook, and even poor old Google+, which was in the news this week for maybe kind of getting broken up a little bit. Not sure what its future is, but we'll still take your comments there as well. And, of course, the listserv. Just a great place to interact with other WELSTechers, as we call them, and get your questions answered or share your knowledge there. So love to have you join the conversation. Sally, next week, I feel a cold coming on.
You feel a cold coming on. Oh, you've got a virus, it sounds like. Yikes.
Yeah.
Viruses on the computer can be a real hassle, and they're so prevalent these days. So, yeah, we thought we'd talk about viruses next week.
Security is more important than ever. We hear about security breaches all the time. Identity theft, maybe one of the most recent kinds of trends is holding your data hostage. So somebody will infect your computer, and they say, well, you pay us X number of dollars, and you can get access to your files again. So we'll be having an interview with a pastor who's gone down a couple of these roads and has some experiences to share and some advice to give. So please tune in next week for Virus Day. That's next week. Featured video, let me guess, Sally, has something to do
with our interview today?
With our interview today, yes. Road to Emmaus and Come Follow Me. Road to Emmaus in its entirety, I think, right?
That's correct.
Available. And trailer for Come Follow Me. Those are going to be our videos of the week, and they'll be in the show notes and on our YouTube playlists. So you can grab access or grab copies of those. So, Sally, I'm out of ammunition here today. How about you?
Yep, time to think about being dingy at handbells for me.
Tuesday night. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show and enjoyed the interview, and we'll come back next week for more. Talk to you in between, and if not, see you next week. Bye-bye.